I did promise you more salt from the Conservative salt mines, and we will deliver very gladly today. And I've got a very interesting serving for you today. So, one of the big things you may remember after the 2024 general election was they were looking for someone to blame, and they blamed everyone but themselves for this. And this is kind of an interesting one we've got on this one because we've seen, of course, the head honcho, I think, of North Nottinghamshire Council came out and said, yeah, the Tory pot is dead in 12 months. We've had things saying, well, maybe Kimmy Badenoch wasn't to blame, but on the other hand, maybe she was, and maybe she'll bring out some policy that might save us in the future. But this one is kind of an interesting one because this lays the blame for the Conservative defeat at CCHQ headquarters. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means Conservative Party headquarters. It is down in London. It is what basically is the party operations, does all the admin stuff and day-to-day comms and stuff from a party perspective. It what sets strategy for elections, and in particular, this election really seemed that they got absolutely, destroyed. I think that's pretty much obvious from what we can see. But where does the blame lie? Now, really, the blame lies with the Conservative Party as a whole. They still have not understood why they lost in the first place, why their reputation is so bad. They cannot have any single moment of self-respect or anything like that. But no, today we're gonna blame like the command center for all this choice. Interesting way of going for it, when especially, of course, if you may remember, one of the big things that Kimmy Badenoch ran on when she was going to be leader was that she was going to reform CCHQ. How well has that gone if you've got someone here having a go, complaining at the very thing apparently you said was wrong? And also a very interesting admission about UKIP. So let's get on into, well, not UKIP, but Reform. But they are basically the same party, just with a different color, really. Anyway, back onto this. So before we do kick off, like I say, like and share button down below. There's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, there's the Pony Club down below. You know the drill by now. So as always, let's crack on then into this. So this coming from Conservative Home with Sheena Sharp saying campaigning very hard locally, only to lose very badly, is now a wake-up call to the centre, not to the candidates. So candidates, you're blameless. But the centre, CCHQ, oh, you're the one to blame on this. So we need CCHQ to step up. Last week, I was one of the many Conservative candidates who stood for local office across the country, campaigning my socks off, and then suffered a devastating defeat. Nevertheless, locally, there was nothing we could have done. The scale of the defeat showed that we have a national problem and that something needs to change. Well, yes. You've recognized that this change needs to happen, and the problem is a national problem. And I would recommend that it is your own party that needs to change drastically, because if not, you're doomed. But as I've said before, that ain't happening. That ain't happening. People like David Gauke, Rory Stewart, who are the ones, I would say quite accurately, getting to the heart of what the problems are in your party. But you can't turn around and have a look at them, because then they might have to ask some very difficult questions about other things that they have backed and done in 14 years of government and power. And they do not want to have those conversations. And so long as they continue on that, they are doomed. And as I said, we're here until the end of this doom train to see how it all ends, probably sputtering out into the night. Anyway, Chelmsford is not Brexit heartland, with just 51% of the vote having voted to leave, and the and of course, electing a Liberal Democrat MP in 2024, it should not be solid ground for reform. Yet, we found ourselves in third place in the district election, just about saving second place in the county election. We are not winning the hard right vote, and we are not winning the centrist vote. We are just simply not winning. And why do you think that might be? Why do you think that might not be? You're not winning the hard right vote because, well, they've got reform. They're not going to win that. And then you are so trying to straddle the line at the moment, or at least the Conservative Party is straddling the line at the moment, that it ain't going to win any back of the hard right votes, because why vote for Farage light when you can have full fat Farage? And you're scaring away the centrists because they don't like the rhetoric you're putting out to try and win back some of that far right vote. You'd have thought maybe they would have discovered this or thought about that option, but no, they won't. Anyway, our local, of course, by-election campaign was, of course, no small feat. I ran several campaign sessions every day, all day since the by-election was called. We held over 80 activists volunteering throughout the campaign. We attracted a shadow cabinet secretary of state and shadow ministers, many Essex MPs, and, of course, leader of the opposition herself. We delivered, of course, hand-addressed letters, personalised letters, several pieces of very thoughtful literature. I love it. Thoughtful literature. About what, may I ask? And we canvassed about 17% of voters. There is simply nothing more we could have done. Maybe it wasn't a canvassing issue then. Maybe it wasn't a canvassing issue then. Maybe it was one around messaging. Maybe, if you actually had maybe a competent leader, maybe, with policies that, people maybe wanted to vote for, maybe you might not be in this situation, but that's not the case. That's not the case, is it? And blaming CCHQ when it is in reality your whole party that has a massive problem is just, again, you found a tiny problem, but meanwhile that tiny problem is reaching out into a whole crack amongst your party. So, and then this is where they get onto Reform HQ, onto Reform, because, oh my word, this isn't the first time we've been hearing just how badly they canvassed, and yet they still managed to win in some of these seats. It's horrendous that they even managed to win, but how on earth they managed to win in this case, I don't know. So what did Reform UK do? Not very much. They had 3 volunteer activists delivering one basic flyer with the wrong area name written on it and barely even knocked on doors. What is worse, they did not understand the electoral boundaries, which led to a very last-minute rush to deliver literature in an area that they thought and forgot about, and then launched their campaign in a pub outside of the electoral boundary too. Fantastic work by the bright minds there at Reform UK. But why did they win? What did they do? I think, again, it's Farage managed to get out the vote. I've said this, you look at the numbers, it was 30%. 30% for a local election is absolutely dire. You look at some places as well, the percentage points for people actually turning out to vote went up. And guess where Reform won in those places where the vote, went up a few points? It was those Reform areas, because Farage knows full well, going all the way back to the UKIP days, all the way back to those European elections, if you can get your small, highly motivated voter base to go out and vote in an election that is incredibly low turnout to begin with, just as the European elections were, then you can win. And once again, he's proved that. And not a lot of people talk about that it is voter turnout, as always, in a lot of elections, really does matter. But anyway, back to this. Despite, of course, our massive effort and their very clearly inexperienced campaign machine, they landed themselves now in second place in a district election and close third in another county election. In previous years, our level of effort would have secured a very comfortable win. They will, of course, be better prepared next time. I don't think they will be. honestly. I really don't think they will be. We know this is not a local problem. And to an extent, yes, I would agree with them. The problems of the Conservative Party are not a local problem. It is a wide ranging problem. And not all local, shall we say, Conservative parties are, shall we say, distance themselves from the problems that their party is facing. Anyway, we were, of course, just a casualty now on the national picture, and we now need CCHQ to step up. I understand, of course, the need to go back over our mistakes brick by brick and build our policies for the future. However, that is not the same as allowing now a vacuum of vision to fester as we currently are. Why is that there? That is not CCHQ. That is Kimmy Badenoch herself. So you are not, in this case, blaming the right person, or at least the right people in your own party for this. We know, of course, what it means to be conservative, small state, low taxes. Again, as we've said, you look at the polls, people do not want a small state. They do not even want low taxes either, because they know that if they have higher taxes, that goes into better public services. And guess what? People want better public services. You make the state smaller. That means you're basically saying which public service do you no longer want to actually have. Maybe this whole small state lower taxes is something that the Conservatives maybe should consider getting rid of. But of course, they're not. But there you go. Anyway, looking, of course, now after the most vulnerable, law and order, we do not currently know how, of course, is best back to get there. The electorate will forgive us for not knowing how, at least yet. Again, it doesn't seem like that they have yet. But how can they vote for us when they don't know what we are trying to achieve? Again, fair point. But once those policies come out and the arguments start, oh boy. This is, of course, isn't an argument about vicious headlines. It's about an argument for communicating our vision. We must give people a reason to actually vote for us, and going back to now our core values. There is nothing controversial in that. But again, what are these core values? What does it mean when it comes to policy? So let me share now a very pertinent quote from the musician Brian Eno, saying, I think charisma comes out of the sense that you have not only is somebody very different, but they're also very confident about it, committed to it, obsessed by it even. We don't even find uncertainty charismatic. Uncertainty doesn't work for anybody very well because in the general, the media doesn't appreciate people like that. I would like to, of course, cultivate a charisma of uncertainty, a charisma of admitting that you're making it up as you go along. So it worked well for Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and he's working for Farage and Reform UK. Again, very true, but what happens now that they are in power in those local councils? They've got responsibility for the first time ever. What's going to happen? It's going to end in a disaster. I've talked about that, and I will cover when stuff starts to go catastrophically wrong for them. So this, of course, is not just my own opinion. I spent some time at the count with Reform UK Chelmsford interim chairman and former Conservative Party member. He said that if the Conservative Party went back to its Thatcherite policies, Reform UK would cease to appeal. But they did. They've tried this. They've gone back that way, and it didn't work. Many times. But they still don't understand. Still don't understand. It's striking that they would just not look in the mirror and have a real self-introspective look at themselves. It's unbelievable, but there you go. I also spoke to the Reform UK candidates at the count. Both were, of course, former Conservative Party members. I asked why they went to Reform UK. They said it was easy to become a candidate. Well, I am not surprised by some of the very unstringent vetting that went on, considering one of the cases that has come out, you had 4 people who decided that they would vet each other. Yes, I'm sure the vetting process between those 4 people was very stringent. One even replied, knowing, of course, that they were crying out for knowing, of course, that we're currently crying out for good, committed candidates, this was very difficult to hear. Yeah, good being the operative word there. I then, of course, took a look at the Reform UK website and the candidate application page and read the line, no prior political experience necessary, free training. They are making politics accessible in a way that we are failing to do. It took me back to when I first joined the Conservative Party when I was asked to apply to stand. I didn't think that it was from people like me. People do that all the time. People stand for office with no previous political experience. There's a lot of new Labour MPs, never had previous political experience. There are councillors out there, first time councillors, not even Reform UK councillors, who have never, ever had any political experience and find themselves in that job. Free training, I would say, is the least the party should be offering. Least the party should be offering for those people. And the party does. Most parties will do that. They will give these people training. So back to this. The Conservative Party is the longest standing political party, and we should celebrate that. But CCHQ also needs to find a way to navigate now the pitfalls of that current political climate. There's a very deep cry for the electorate now for fresh thinking against the political class and a return to power to the people. Again, what does that actually mean, though? Do people actually even understand what that means or what policies they would like? No. This is the cry of populism crying out for simple solutions to very complex problems. And Reform UK are now in control of 10 councils. And as we are going to see, those simple offered solutions are not going to be the answers to the very complex problems those councils now have to try and solve with Reform UK in charge. So Reform UK now offers all of this, but without any track record of delivery. And over the next few years, we will watch them closely, and I'm sure we will communicate all of their failures very loudly. Yeah, like I say, it is going to go horribly wrong for them. We will, of course, not win off the back of their failures alone. I'm sure you won't. It will probably be someone else that does, probably the Lib Dems, because they will benefit from that entirely. They will, of course, call it reform. We will call it renewal. We can't, of course, be thinking about renewal, but what does it actually mean? They can tell you what the electorate wants, new people. What is CCHQ doing? Encouraging people to try and join us and try to stand for us. Every association I speak to tells me the very same thing. They're struggling to find good new candidates and get activists out on the doorstep. Yep, because your brand is incredibly toxic at the moment. That is why it is the struggle to find those people. Has Badnock tried to detoxify the Conservative brand? Not one bit. Our messaging here is, of course, very broken. There is much to, of course, learn from Reform UK. The wish list for CHQ is, of course, very long, but let's get back to proper Conservative values. Again, what does that even mean? Again, being a massive buzzword, you'll notice thrown about a lot. Let's make it up as we go along. Let's bring in new and nurture new talent. Let's give people a reason to vote for us again. And ultimately, let's get back to winning elections. Not going to happen anytime soon, not under this Conservative party, that's for certain. But yeah, blaming CCHQ doesn't really pick out a couple of reasons why they were blaming CCHQ for certain. I mean, there was certainly, of course, something about the strategy, etc. And yeah, to an extent, CCHQ are responsible for that. But what about your party leader? What about the rest of the party involved? It speaks volumes to just how bad a hole the Conservative Party is in. And it's honestly fascinating to think about and watch where we were in 2019 to where we are now. I mean, seriously, go back and look, if you don't believe me, about the cries of victory the Conservatives were having in 2019 and about how this was now setting the course for a new decade, if not more, of Conservative rule of the UK. And look where you are now. It's unbelievable, but that's where they happened, and they cannot have any self-respect of look why it happened, what happened, how they got there, why the brand is so bad, why their candidates are not good enough or not up to the challenge. It's honestly unbelievable, but that's where they are. That's where they are. and they will never ever solve these problems because they are just incapable of doing so. Absolutely incapable of doing so. It's unbelievable. Really is, but that's just where they are. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.